Good afternoon. Welcome to this third session on the history of Auroville between 1968 and 1973. In the first two sessions, we interviewed people who were present at the inauguration ceremony and people who lived in the early communities of Promise, Forecomers, and Peace. In 1969, many young people started to come to Auroville. Most of them came from Western Europe and the United States. A lot of the early comers lived in communities around Peace, that is at the pump house, which was later called Arindam, Sincerity, Fidelity, which was later renamed Shanti. Also, Narad and Annie started the Matra Mandir nursery with Amrit, who still works there. Rod began school for Tamil children in Center Field, and Shama and Frederick and their children moved to a temporary house at Orison's home. Didn't turn out to be very temporary because it's still there. But the most spectacular event of 1969 was the arrival of a caravan from Paris. On August the 15th, at 0 hours, 15 adults and one child left Paris to travel overland to Auroville. It took them 6 weeks because they had an accident on the way. Shortly after they arrived, a new Aurovilian, Philor, was born to one of the couples on the caravan. In preparation for the arrival of these people who had already committed themselves to an experiment in collective living, several huts were built and a community kitchen near the Tamil village of Kulapaliyam. Now, although these two communities were separated by culture, tradition, language, education, and wealth, still it was part of the experiment of Auroville in human unity that people who were vastly different from each other would live close together. Today, we will be interviewing some people who were present, who traveled from Paris on the caravan, plus others who were already here. Maybe we shall be, but I'm not sure if he's coming, we shall be talking to Canon, an early Aurovilian from Kulapaliyam, about his impression of the newcomers. So today we will speak to Francois and Jean-Claude, who came on the caravan, and Christophe, who was already here when the caravan arrived, and Dorothy, who came a little later. Sally Champ from California in the United States will be the interviewer. Thank you.
Good morning. Okay, Francois, you were on that caravan that left Paris. I hear a lot about the caravan, but I don't know what it looked like. Were there automobiles? Were there vans? What was your mode of transportation?
Well, actually, there were old second-hand French cars. I think there were two vans, two old Citroën vans, and two old Peugeot. And there was also a newer car which was driven by Papa Chenet. Remember Papa Chenet? And we worked in Paris in a garage for about 2 months. Although I was very young, so I'm afraid I didn't really participate very much. And but still, the cars were not such good condition because they kept breaking down all the way from Paris to Auroville. So actually, they were quite old cars, and I think they're all gone. Some of them burned down when there was that fire in Aspiration, and don't know what happened to them.
But the original vehicles, did they all make it here, or did you have to replace them along the way?
No, they all made it here, except the vans broke down. I think after Pakistan they broke down, so they had to be towed. Maybe even before Pakistan. So the two vans had to be towed by the two Peugeots from maybe Pakistan or Afghanistan onwards. So we actually reached Auroville towing these two vans, which were out of order.
I'm trying to imagine what that looked like, towing one car behind another through Pakistan. It must have been quite a sight to see this caravan of vehicles full of French people heading across this part of Asia. It seems kind of dramatic. Was it a dramatic occurrence?
Well, actually, the whole caravan was quite dramatic. We had accidents and we had a lot of fights. People were very different. They had different aspirations, they had different commitments to come here, and we were all very young. Except maybe for people who had already come here and who knew about Sherman and the mother, like Vincenzo, and there was Stephen, also an Australian, who's not here anymore. And there was Alain Mollier and Eliane, so they knew a little bit about Auroville and the mother. The rest, we just had a faint idea of why we were coming. So not only were the cars in a rather bad state, but we were all very, very motley. We were not united. I can't say that, it was a very harmonious and very beautiful experience.
So why did you come to Auroville? What was your motivation, or how did you even find out about it, and what was interesting about it for you?
Well, personally, it was an accident, kind of, if you can call it this. I had my best friend. His father was the last French governor of Pondicherry. His name was Jean-Marie, and his father's name was François Baron. And I had been knowing him, since my early childhood, because my parents and his parents knew each other from, before I was born even. So I had heard about Pondicherry, I had heard about Auroville, I heard about the mother and Chermindo, though I was never interested. And when I finished my studies, he came back from Pondicherry, told me there's a caravan going to Auroville, why don't you go? And I thought, maybe I can go around the world and utilize this caravan, go up to India, then from India go into Japan, from Japan to America, and then come back to Paris. So I was only 19, and at this time I think you had to be 21 to be an adult. So I had to get my parents' permission and got the papers, and so I took this caravan without knowing about the Auroville, without knowing about the mother, Chermindo, not being interested actually. I mean, outwardly I didn't have the aspiration. I just felt that I wanted to get out of the life I had in France, and I'd never been very happy there. And very dimly and consciously I felt that this is what I had to do and go out in the world, and the caravan just happened to be there, and I just took the caravan by chance. But then of course, as the caravan developed, as we progressed on the road from Paris to Auroville, there were a lot of trouble, a lot of fights, and but then I started reading Chermindo and the mother, and I read particularly Saad-Prem's L'Aventure de la Conscience, which had just come out. And by the time I reached Delhi, I knew that this was it. This is where I wanted to stay all my life. So I was 19. I just turned 19 at that time, and I started without knowing where I was going. And by the time I reached Auroville, I knew I was going to stay there for all my life. This was my thing. So in a way, it was very intense, but very difficult experience.
What you said there were fights and problems on the caravan during the trip. What kind of problems did you encounter at that time?
Well, people were very different. You had, if you want to simplify, you had the people who were materialistic and people who were spiritualist. On one hand, you had people like Alain Monnier and Eliane, who had a kind of so-called spiritual approach to Auroville. They read the mother, they read the Chermindo. And you had other people like Vincenzo, they were more, materialistic. For them it was more working and doing, and so there was a conflict between these people. And I was very young, so I was caught in between because I was neither one nor the other, and I didn't know about Auroville. I hadn't read Chermindo, I didn't know about India, and I was not also very, carried by materialistic things or vital things. So one didn't feel very comfortable because there was a conflict between these people, and then you were caught in between, and you didn't know what was happening, and you didn't understand what was the So there were a lot of conflict, and on top of that, it was difficult because the cars were not in good condition. We didn't have so much money. There were the accidents. We got stuck in a place called Erzurum, which is the border of Iran and of Turkey and Iran, and it was terrible because we were stuck there for a week, and it was middle of nowhere. People were hostile, and we stayed in the place which was very hot in the day and very cold at night. We were attacked at night. Also, we had to protect our women. So it was kind of baffling. But I remember that for me the turning point was Istanbul. Istanbul was like the East. Suddenly, after 20 years in Europe, you come there and you see Istanbul. It was like the gate of the East. Suddenly you felt a different world, different vibration, different possibilities. So for me, that was a great turning point. And the second turning point was in Delhi. When we reached Delhi, there was Roger and I think Navajata and Udar. I'm not sure, but I think Udar was there waiting for us in Delhi. And they took us to the Shromido Ashram in Delhi, which at that time looked like in the countryside. In my memory, it was, there were fields and, it was outside. Now it's right in the middle of Delhi, and there are buildings and traffic and pollution. That time it looked like the countryside. So we reached this place and we were very tired, and it had been a tough trip. And that's my personal experience. I remember that I had this book of Sat Prem, The Adventure of Consciousness, and I climbed on the roof of one of the vans, and there was a setting sun, in India, and it was so peaceful, and people were coming back from the fields with their plows and their bullocks, And I read a few pages of that book, and it was like, suddenly I felt, that this was it. I had reached my place. So I guess this was the great turning point of that trip. And after that, it was easier. After Delhi, then from Delhi to Agra, then we saw the Taj Mahal. Then we went to down south, reached Hyderabad, Bangalore, and I remember we reached Auroville one early morning. We landed in Promise. I think it was Promise. There's a photo actually of all of us landing in Promise, and I'm hiding behind Krishna, which was my friend and protector during that caravan. His name then was Zali. And then we went to Purna's restaurant on the beach, which was already called to Skifu, and then we had lunch there. And in the evening, we sat under the banyan tree in Aspiration. The banyan tree is gone now. And Roger was there, and he gave us Mother's first message. And I think the first message was, there should be no servants in Auroville. That's what I remember, the first message. So that was my first day in Aspiration.
Okay, Jean-Claude, you were on that caravan also. How did you happen to join the caravan? What led up to it?
Oh, that was... I knew about Auroville from Bernard Delambre, who is still here. And he explained me about Mother Sri Aurobindo and the beginning of Auroville. And I was interested, but no more than that. What was interesting me was the situation in France. It was becoming very difficult, more politically. And I was part of the 1968 movement in Paris. I was fighting against the police. And after that, I decided with Bernard to make a big travel around the world. So I wanted to purchase a huge bus from the RATP and aménage that in a nice caravan and making travel all around the world, because France was lost for me. And at that time, Vincenzo came to France to start his own caravan for Auroville. And Bernard was in contact with the Auroville Association, told me that, there is opportunity to go with a group, to go to India and to maybe to settle in Auroville, a new city. I say yes, why not? Can be interesting to work there for 1 year, and then after I finish my trip. And I joined the caravan, and it was very, very, very interesting experience. this trip around the world, I mean, from Europe to India, was terrible somewhere, but was so beautiful, really so beautiful. For me, it was, I cannot say a dream, but I had the opportunity to be in contact with so many different people and to live together and to fight with them, to have a... It was fantastic. And the big shock for me was the arriving in Auroville. I thought that the city was already started. I thought to see buildings, to see shops, to see roads. And it was plain land, bare land with nothing. No tree, nothing. And that was a big shock. And we were sitting in aspiration in a few houses not even finished. And that was the beginning, so we have to start to work, and I started to work. And for me, I never had any doubt that I will never go again. That was my place. That was clear when I arrived in Auroville.
You said it was, part of the trip was fantastic. Fantastic in what way? Was it fun? Did you have good times with each other, or were there more problems than there was fun?
I cannot say. I'm a little bit optimistic. So for me, I remember much better the funny things than the very bad things. And it was quite nice, quite funny, yeah. But it was difficult because two tendencies was there for us, very young people. The first one was to go very quick to Auroville, and the other one was to make a little bit sad thing. But it was sure a lot of adventure, breakdown on the road because it was no road, only a very bad piste. So we have to repair a vehicle very often. It was funny to repair the vehicle at night without tools, without anything. It was, I don't know, a great adventure, like a pioneer on the far west of America at the beginning. I was playing. For me, it was a great play all the time.
Did you have any skills as a mechanic? Did you have any idea how to repair a car, or who was the mechanic on the trip?
The main mechanic was Steven, who is out of station now, and Vincenzo had some knowledge. And for me, I had to make in practice what I learned in the university, and have to. I never did anything in mechanics before, only to repair my own car, but that was not so great. And that it was a kind of survival test. We have to do it. We have to imagine anything to make the thing going on again. Till the end, we were obliged to pull the vehicle with the two others. Yeah, it was nice.
At that time, you had just finished your education, or had you interrupted your education? How old were you, and what kind of experience had you had before you left to come to Auroville?
Well, I was just graduate from engineering, electromechanic, and I have to stop my education, yeah, because I wanted to go more far. To be able to travel, I have to work a little bit. So I did selling. I was selling cheese in a big supermarket. It was very funny also. So I make enough money to be able to come here. I have no experience on working outside. No. Just a little bit.
So your experience before you left on that caravan really didn't prepare you for what you were going to encounter once you got on the road. Is that correct?
Not really, but I had the opportunity to travel quite a lot before, because I was part of organization of Scout de France. So every year I was traveling somewhere in Europe. So I had some ground, I can say.
You say when you first arrived in Auroville, you knew it was, at that point you knew it was your place. What did you see when you got here, and why did you know it was your place?
What I saw nothing, only a barland. In aspiration, a few hut not finished. And I don't know, I think it was the atmosphere around. It's not palpable. I mean, it was that. I don't know how to explain it. I assure it was my place. It was my. I was arrived. I have no any more question about to be here or to be there. It was there.
And after you arrived, did you stay in Auroville then, or did you continue on traveling?
No, I didn't move. My first time I went out was after the departure of Mother in 1973, 74. It was January 74. Yeah. It was Bernard, in fact, the guy who brought me here, who left after 9 months. He saw my mother and he said, it's time for you to send a ticket to your son, because he wants to see you. And I didn't imagine to go out. And at that time, mother left her body, and I was quite depressed. And I received the tickets to go to France. I said, so, let's see. And I went out. But when I arrived in the Bourget at that time, I wanted to take the next plane to go back to India, because I felt so miserable there. But anyway, I spent 9 months to prepare the second caravan.
And the second caravan, you organized that?
Yeah.
Was that a better trip than the first one?
It was, I don't know if it was better, but it was different. It was with a big bus and with another van, with 2 vans, and 40 people. So it was a little bit different. But I think it was almost as difficult as the first one, because the roads were not so good. We had a lot of trouble on the way. We had accidents also, and we spent 2 months traveling. But it was funny either.
Okay. Dorothy, you were already in Auroville when the caravan arrived, and you were living in Aspiration, is that correct?
No.
Okay. Tell us your story then. How did you get here?
Actually, I came a few months after the first French caravan had arrived here. How I came here, and that was coming together of many things, actually, if I think about it. First, I had finished my school then. I should have gone to university then. Second, I met a group of people who just at that time came in contact with Sri Aurobindo. And one fellow out of that group, he saw a photo of Sri Aurobindo in a bookshop, which was on the cover of that first German book on Sri Aurobindo, actually. It was a biography, which is, is still being published, I think. He bought that book because he was so much impressed with the photograph on it. Then we all read it. It all came together at the same time, and we were all very much touched by it. After some time, we came across an article about the inauguration of Auroville in '68, and we came to know that this was actually the same thing, that this man, Sri Aurobindo, and the mother after him had founded a city. We thought, this is great. this is exactly what we want to do. That was about 1 year before we actually left. So from that time on, we were sort of preparing. It was a very intense time also. And I think that turning point in my life, which François has been talking about, came already one New Year's day, New Year's night between 68 and 69. I remember that very clearly, that I thought, now something is going to change. So after that we started preparing that our caravan. It was a little Volkswagen bus which we put up a little bit, built up a little bit for people to sleep inside. We were 6 people, 3 young men and three girls, ladies, and a tent on top which could be flapped open, so 3 people could sleep up and 3 people could sleep down. It was a nice trip. Actually, something I must tell. The French caravan, on their way down to India, they actually passed in our place. You may remember that. I was not there, unfortunately, then, but it was quite a nice coincidence. So our trip was quite intense again, like all those months before. Yeah, and I don't remember anything special happening, except maybe once a car broke down and our self-styled mechanic had to hitchhike for 400 kilometers to get a spare part. So we just got stuck on that road there for 2 days, and then got some help also to change that part. And when we went on, there was nothing specially happening on that.
So your caravan was different from the other caravan in that you all knew each other before you started out, and you prepared in some way yourselves, and you also knew something about Sri Aurobindo and the mother.
Yes.
Are those people still here now?
No, unfortunately not. Actually, it started giving problems soon after we arrived, I remember, because our group was very different from the French group, which was already there, and the other people, that I don't know, somehow they couldn't adjust, and soon they started breaking away one after the other.
And so of that original group, you're the only one that's left here now?
I'm the only one, yes.
And when the others have said that at some point during the trip or soon after they got here, they knew that this was their place. Did you have a similar kind of experience, or were you thoroughly committed, if you can be thoroughly committed before you see anything? But at some point after you got here, did you know that this was your place and you were going to stay, and you were somehow, you had a stronger commitment than the other people in the group?
Don't really know what to say. I don't think I was totally committed before I came here, and even for the first time I had in mind to study, because after my schooling I should have gone to university, and I wanted to study something like a comparative religion or whatever. I thought, well, I can do that there also, and maybe stay there one year and then go back or so. That was in my mind. That what. But then when I came here, things became more and more real all the time, and I more and more knew that it was actually the experience which counts, not what you learn about it. And even though I did, when we first came here, I asked if I could be admitted in the Center of Education in the ashram, and Mother did give permission. For 4 months, I think, I went there regularly, spent a lot of time in the library and so. But after we moved out to Aspiration, I felt a discrepancy there. It just didn't fit, and then I wanted to do something on the place itself, and I started working there, and that's how it happened.
And everyone in your group, they were all about the same age, 18, 19 years old, something like that?
I was a bit older than that, but we, one lady was a bit older. Yeah, I was 23 when I came.
And did you all get along, or were there fights also the way there were in the first caravan?
Not that way, not the French way. Ours was a different makeup of the group. I mean, it's a bit difficult to explain that. I bet I don't.
You're going to be diplomatic? Okay. Christoph, you were here in the early days, and you arrived before the caravan, and you were involved in the preparation for the caravan. Is that true?
Yes, actually I had come to the ashram to see my mother, who had been here for some time, and I wrote to the mother saying that I would really like to help, because I knew my brother was coming with a caravan. I thought I could help there in aspiration to prepare the house, to finish. There was a lot of work to do. There was some painting and some finishing touches, but it seemed that it was not quite ready, as Jean-Claude said. I mean, we did our best to get it ready on time, and that's why it happened. And I met the first persons there. Bhagavan Das was actually my first friend there. He's known as, what's his name now?
Jean-Pierre.
He was Jean-Pierre at that time, yeah. Yes, that's how it happened.
You must be very unusual in that you came to visit your mother?
Yes, actually, I came to visit my mother for 2 or 3 months, and I met the mother. So, actually, it was the second time. I had come already in '67, and just for 3 months. I was finishing my studies then, and the second time in '69. I had come also only for 2-3 months, just for vacations. And what was very interesting is on the very last day, I had my ticket booked, everything was there, all plans were made. I had to go back to France. I had to work in a small school. I had started teaching in the south of France. And on the very last day, or maybe 2 days before, I just went to see the mother, and I said to her, very simply, "Mother, I just don't feel like going. I feel it's my home, it's just my place." And she said, "Well, you can stay here as long as you like." And I'm still here. And you see, with Mother, the experiences, everything was absolutely so, so simple, so straightforward. I mean, okay, you want to stay here, if you want to stay, then just stay. If it's your home, it's your home. And I had the same experience later with her, that everything was extremely simple. But of course we were very complex, so we had a lot of problems. That's why we went to her for guidance. But yes, this.
When you were given the assignment to get together these huts in anticipation of the caravan that was arriving, had you had any experience with building huts or acting as a host for newly arrived people?
No, not at all, not at all. I was studying philosophy in Nanterre, where all this troubled. I had the experience of this 1968, also a student uprising in Paris. I was involved in that also, but I couldn't really feel very much involved. Maybe something in me already was aspiring to something else, I don't know. And it became clear when I arrived here. For me in the beginning there was not so much difference between the ashram and Auroville. It was a different experience, but still, I mean, it was part of the same one thing. And really I also felt that this was the place. And everything really, I mean, seemed to be so futile and uninteresting at that time. And life was so real. That's why I really decided to stay on. It's no longer philosophy, but something much deeper and more interesting, really. And And also, I must say one thing also, that the first time I arrived in India, it was, I went by plane. I didn't have this wonderful experience of coming with the caravan. But the first time I arrived, it was in Bombay, maybe the worst of places. And I really felt that this was my country. And it was such a powerful experience, just being there in India. It was like coming out of a small place, and going into something which is very vast and you can breathe at last really freely. And it's a very concrete experience. And in Auroville, it was exactly the same thing, to be part of something which has no limit, actually. That was the wonder of it.
So when this caravan arrived, what did they find when they got here? You say the huts weren't quite finished. What did you do with these people when they put their brakes on and got out of the cars?
Well, it was not easy really, because I mean, we had been living there for a few months, just a few of us, and then suddenly there was this all these people coming from France, and we are a little bit back to the not to say to the old world, but what we had actually decided to leave behind us. And it's not easy, I must say, because we were very young and some very childlike aspiration. At that time we really thought that everything is going to happen now. We have the sense of the miracle, something that really, it was so incredibly powerful at that time, that really we had the feeling that it's going to happen. It's something marvelous. So when these people came, it was not easy to adjust, to find the true relationship, and but I must say it was a wonderful time. I don't remember anything. Maybe like Jean-Claude also. And it was really a wonderful experience. Actually, there was hardly anything there. We had everything to do. I mean, plant the first trees and start the kitchen. There was a lot of work in the community kitchen. I was quite involved in that in the beginning also. So it was a lot to do. It was a wonderful experience, I must say. Difficult, but...
Francois, I see here, you're sitting here shaking your head yes in agreement about the feelings of the people when they first arrived. You were young, maybe a little naive. What was it like for you when you first got here?
No, it's wonderful to remember, and when Christophe speaks, my heart, goes out, because it's true, we had the sense of the miracle. Everything was possible. We were so young. We still are. It's still there in us, but we were so young, and there was nothing. There was nothing to be seen, nothing to believe in, but everything was. We believed, we felt, everything was there, and we had this faith and this. And actually, it's an anecdote. It's funny, but Christophe used to be my teacher. When I was a kid, when I was not a kid, maybe 16, he was my Latin teacher in school. And I met him again in Paris. We were having this shot. At that time, we had to have a lot of shots before coming for it. Tetanus and so I met him in the Institut Pasteur in Paris, and I said, "Oh, but this is my Latin teacher."
I didn't know Latin. I must tell you, I was teaching Latin without knowing much about that. The little I knew.
And what Jean-Claude was saying also, it's true that we were young during the caravan, and we wanted to stop and look, and to spend 4 days in Istanbul, and Afghanistan was fascinating also. It was such a new world for us. But people who had already, Vincenzo had done the road, I think, already 2-3 times, maybe 2 times. So he was pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing the cars and pushing us, and ultimately the cars broke, and we didn't break, but I nearly left at some point. I had a fight with Vincenzo and in Istanbul, and I thought, I'll stay in Istanbul. It was such a wonderful place, and but somehow I stayed in the caravan and I reached here. But I think maybe another time, but this caravan deserves, more. There are so many things to be said about this caravan. When we left, we left Paris on 15th of August, as you said, at 0 hours. And Paris in August is totally empty at that time, Everybody leaves Paris, So it was like a feeling of, it was feeling something being not dead, but something. It was like living in a world, no, living in an old world. No, suddenly I was 19 and I just turned 19 and I didn't know anything about India, but it was like suddenly I understood I was leaving something behind me forever. You know? And as Christophe said also, when you reach there, we brought our Frenchness, you know, and our, you know, we were very rough. I think, I don't know what Jean-Claude would say, but we were all very rough, you know. I remember when Roger saw us the first time, you know, and his look was like, oh, how are we going to make Auroville with these people, you know? These 15 people who had just arrived from France, and they had, for all the wrong reasons, I guess, you know. Roger never recovered after that. And you know, what Christophe says, you know, and I felt the same thing, you know. I mean, that what I had left behind me, I was still finding there in aspiration in the first few months. So, you know, there was a lot of energy and lots of fights also, and lots of. So I felt, and I wrote to the mother. I said, Mother, this is what I have left behind, you know, and I would like something different. So I asked her to go to the ashram. And she said no at first, and finally she said yes. So I only stayed actually 8 months in aspiration, and I went to Golconde, and I spent 4 months in Golconde. I'm going too fast, maybe, you know.
Continue.
I spent 4 months, and that was the second turning point of my life, is that these 4 months in Golconde was like a purification, reading Shobino, reading the mother, going to the ashram, meditating. I mean, trying to meditate. And then the mother put me in the garden, which was outside Pondicherry. So actually, I only stayed 7 months in Auroville, and there are people who can talk better than me about these early months. But the caravan was something very interesting, and I think it deserves, you know, that more people talk about it. Krishna should come because he was also quite a character, he's still quite a character. And there was Sébastien also, who used to have him, you know, he used to ask people to time himself on the van, on top of the van, so he would ask someone to time on top of the van in the night, and he would look at the stars and traveling, you know, in this wilderness in the middle of nowhere, and he would just look at the stars. So there were a lot of characters in this caravan. No? Some of them have disappeared. No, I don't know what happened to them. So each one maybe deserves a story or remembrance. But this feeling has to come back to Auroville, of that miracle. Everything was possible, and when the mother left, of course there were different explanations, and each one has got his own faith, but something went away, because we all believed that everything was possible, that in spite of ourselves, in spite of. So this is what we have to retrieve in Auroville, our youth.
Did the mother explain to you why she wanted you to stay those first several months in Auroville?
Well, actually, as I told you, it's I came by chance here. I was not interested in Auroville. I was not interested in the caravan. Actually, I had a lot of conflict with people in the caravan. Maybe not with Jean-Claude, but with Vincenzo, because they felt I was a stranger. I was not connected. I used to smoke a little bit. Hashish that one could buy so easily in this caravan, and I was not connected, so there was a lot of conflict between me and Vincenzo, and luckily Krishna was there to protect me. So when I came here, my commitment was not towards Auroville, and after I met the mother, I just asked her that I would like to leave Auroville and go to the ashram, because this is where I felt my first love was for India. When I reached India, this is when I felt that I'd reached home, and I felt that Auroville was too westernized at that time. Even now, when I came back from the ashram, I still feel the same thing. That this harshness of the Westerners, this that psychic sweetness which Indians have sometimes. Though sometimes it can be sugary, but that's missing in Auroville. So when I was 19, I felt this very strongly, that this is what I have left behind. This is not. So that's why I asked her to come to the ashram and to be with Indians. So actually I spent my next 8 years with only Indians. I had no Western friends, and I kind of soak myself with that India of the ashram, which of course is different from another India, which is outside in the whole of India.
Jean-Claude, when you arrived here, what were your impressions when you arrived? Were you satisfied with it? Was it what you expected it to be? Was it something different? How did you feel about Auroville when you first got here?
My feeling was very contradictory because I thought Auroville was existing somehow and nothing was there. Everything had to be done. So I had no much question. We have to do it. But the only question we had with the architect at that time was what to do and how to do, because we had nothing. We only knew our by hand to make everything. Only the few tools we have brought with us. So we started to repair our own vehicle. We started to make a small workshop. And the first thing we have to do was to finish the houses and to make the first kindergarten, because we had 2 kids. Yeah, 2 kids. So we have to make a small school. That was the beginning. Small workshop to be able to make new houses and to. It's very difficult to imagine how you can build a city when you don't know anything about. It's very difficult. I'm not architect. I was not plumber. I was not really an electrician. I learned everything in Auroville, in fact. That was a very great school. Making practice what you learn in school. That was very good. No question. We have to do. I had no time to think about. There is always something to be done the next day or the next moment. So I was working. That's all. And sometimes I tried to meditate also, but that was a little bit more difficult. And to read the books of Sri Aurobindo, Mother, Sri Aurobindo impossible to read, too complicated, because most of the Sri Aurobindo was in English, and I felt that I didn't know English at all. What I learned in school was completely forgotten when I arrived in India, because I was not able to communicate with the people in English. So I forget everything and I started to relearn English here. That was great. And as François, was very impressed by Satfren books, Aventure de la Conscience. That was something very great. And maybe that was who make me decide to stay here, maybe. But really no much time to think about. We have to do. We have to construct the city. We have to plant trees. We have to get water. We didn't have any water just at the beginning. The kitchen was not ready. We have to build everything. No time to think.
Did you have any contact with the mother in those early days?
Yeah, that was oof. To think about the mother, the contact we had with her, that's great, incredible. We had the opportunity to have a weekly contact with the mother. A part of the people of Aspiration were seeing the mother every Thursday, I think, to ask her question about how to do, how to proceed, how to become conscious of ourselves. And we were going by shift to see the mother. That's fantastic. And the best contact was when we saw the mother for our birthday. That was cannot describe that. It was really fantastic.
Dorothy, when you first arrived here, or your first 6 months or year in Auroville, how did you feel about it? What was your contact with the ashram? Did you, and the mother? Did you have any? And what did it mean to you?
Actually, my first contact with the mother was 3 days after we came, because we came on 21st November, and 24th November there was the first balcony darshan. I remember many white clothed people on the road there, and I remember far away up there was mother, but I can't say that I just didn't see much. It was too far, and well, I remember the people. I remember the attitude of the people, very intense. After that, yeah, my contact with the ashram, of course I was in the ashram school every day. I had a teacher there. I think for 4 months I used to go there. It was a very good, very good experience. I read the Bhagavad Gita then with my teacher, and Sri Aurobindo's explanation.
Did you see the mother?
I saw the mother only after I had stopped going to that school for my birthday in April.
And what was that experience like for you?
That nobody can describe.
People keep telling me that all the time, that there's no way to describe it.
No.
And this is an experience that I've missed out on because I only came here a year ago. You know, my wish, my hope is that you, all of you that have had this kind of experience, can convey to the newcomers what it was like.
For me, it was just turning everything upside down. Because you come here, you have so many ideas also about spirituality and spiritual life and your experience and whatever. And it's just turning everything upside down. Yeah, I can't say much more to that now.
Christophe, you seem to have been very touched by your experiences with the mother. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Well, I don't think I can say much more than Dorothy. What I can say is about these aspiration talks, as they've now been called. We felt in the beginning, I mean, in aspiration, that we, to really build the city, we needed to build something within us, and we had this conflict of being asked to build something concretely, I mean, to build a city, to have factories and all these things. And at the same time there was this aspiration, this urge. We were reading Satprem and a little bit Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and we felt that something had to be, what Mother said, the inner discovery had to be made. But how to do that? We are quite like little children then on the way. So we felt very much the need of asking the mother whether she could give some guidance and see us from time to time. So I wrote to her, and I got the reply that she was willing to see us once a week. I mean, actually I don't remember exactly whether she said immediately once a week. She said, come and see me on Tuesday. So we went and saw her with Bhagavan Das and Alain Monnier on Tuesday. And well, the experience was that we had gone to her with many questions in our head, and in front of her, the experience that we had so many times is that question disappeared, in the sense that, you know, she threw the light on your problem, on the questions, and you were just sitting there and wondering, but what was my problem? What was the question I wanted to ask? And that was a wonderful experience, that, well, everything is just as it should be, and she immediately she put you in contact with what is really true, what is your true self, your true being, and for a short while in front of her you had really no problem at all. But I remember that the very first question, still I was trying to remember, yes, I had come with a question, I should at least put this one question, you know. And I said about the work, because that was the most important thing for us. I mean, about the work in aspiration, how to proceed, how to. And she immediately felt that there was the tendency to escape a little bit from the work that had to be done. And she said that the inner discovery should have been done before coming here. And this was a very, very striking thing that she said, that it would have been much better and much easier, but of course it was not always the case for us. And she stressed the importance of the very, very physical work. You know, she gave us some so wonderful details, and you can do anything with this attitude of this trying to find the true attitude, and do your just cycling, just planting trees, just doing anything, sweeping, cooking. And it was so wonderful to this very first talk with her, when she stressed that you can just with physical work you can have communion with the divine. You can, and it was very important for us, because we had this tendency of thinking that everything can be done by a miracle. We were very young and thought that maybe there's another way of building the city, not just building factories and production, all these things that we were told to do, that we are not. That was the. So she made it very clear that we have to find the divine here, on this earth, just physically working and finding the true attitude. And during all these talks we had with her on every Tuesday, after some time she told us that I would very much like to try and find with you the true spirit of Auroville. What should be a true Aurovilian? And that's how it started, with the help of Sat Prem also, because after our meeting with the mother, she had meetings with Sat Prem also, and every time she would ask us, now what do you think? What would be the most important thing to be a true Aurovilian? So in the beginning, each one of us would say this and this and that, and little by little she made a sort of a chart. It is known now as to be a true Aurovilian, the first few points. And she had intended to continue, but for a reason that actually we never came to know, she interrupted those talks after a few months. And we were left to ourselves and to herself.
So after those initial talks, did you have any more contact with her, or was that the end of it?
It was not the end personally, because I was very lucky to be able to see her after that once a week. She said, you can still come once a week and see me. But as a group, it stopped. I don't remember exactly when, but I think these talks must have lasted for maybe 6 months or something like that. But
were those talks a part of the agenda? Were they recorded?
Yes, they've been recorded, but no, they're not part of the agenda. They're not part of the agenda, no. Because the agenda, as far as I know, are just mainly the interviews between Mother and Sat Prem. And he was never present during these talks. Though we very much, we asked him so many times if he would come over to Auroville and be a sort of a guide. We thought that maybe he would help to solve all the problems, but he always refused, because he never wanted to be sort of a guru, and he wanted us to find our own way, through the inner contact with the Mother. So, but we met him quite a few times. He helped a lot, I must say.
Francois, you've said something about your initial contact with the Mother. Can you tell us a little bit more? Under what circumstances did you see her, and what kind of things did you talk about, and how did you feel during these talks or after the talks?
I didn't see her immediately because I felt I was not ready. So I think we arrived here on the 30th of September. So I probably saw her in November. And sometimes the mother said that people, when they come to see her, they're always trying to look at their best, And she said, why don't they see me as they are, show themselves as they are. So the first time I wasn't really ready. I was not self-conscious, and I guess I came to her in a simple manner without. So like all of us here, I can't really describe. It's only I can say that her eyes. If one should remember something from the mother, it was her eyes. It was like the magnet that drew you. It was her eyes. And that first time I just froze. I cannot describe what happened. I don't even remember really. But I just froze, and I didn't know where I was. So I think that Purna, who I came to see her with Purna, they had to take me and guide me down because I was so frozen. I mean, I was just, something in me was just caught and seized. I was like seized. That was my first. Of course, after that, I met her again quite a few times, but I guess I was never as natural, as simple as I was the first time. Then every time one expects something or wants something, one always wants to take something, so one loses something certainly. So we were so fortunate to see the mother. I mean, I don't know in Auroville how many people here have seen the mother, but that makes us come back to my first thing, the problem of our, where we fit instruments. I mean, how come, she chose that Caravan, there were 15 people, and we looked so, such unfit instruments, when Roger saw us, he really thought.
Yes, it's true, but you see, at the same time, if you had seen the Auroville land in the beginning, you would have said that is the most unfit place, unfit land for building a city, and maybe we were just the same, and it was necessary to have such a barren, a barren land. And now look at, I mean, this incredible place. Now it's becoming a forest, and we have not yet become a forest, but maybe.
So you mean you had to have a barren group of people in order
maybe,
to start this?
Not too many preconceived ideas. I mean, we are very, very not too many preconceived idea of what spirituality is, and all these big ideas about. We were very. Maybe that was easier in a way. What I remember most of Mother, I mean, apart from the eyes, is the strength of her hands. I was absolutely amazed when she wanted to convey something. She had such strength in her hands, absolutely unbelievable. And she was trying when she was holding your hands. I mean, that was really an experience. Because
when you say strength, do you mean physical strength or some other kind of strength?
Just the physical strength also. I mean, that was really what was so amazing. Of course, there was something else behind, of course, but she was really trying to materialize something so very, very strongly and deeply, and that was really.
Under what circumstances would she hold your hand? I mean, what happened when you were in this kind of contact with her?
Well, just very simply, because when we arrived, we used to be exchange of flowers with her. We would bring some flowers from Aspiration, and she would give back some flowers that she was keeping on her lap or on the table next to her, and she was. I remember once we brought to her some service flowers. It's a big bunch of service flower, and we brought a big bunch of these yellow flowers and gave it to Mother, and people around were a little uneasy because she had this big bunch of flowers in her, but she was smiling, she was so happy. And after that, she to each of us she gave 4 flowers of transformation, and she said service leads to transformation. I mean, it's again a hint that you have to serve, you have to work, you have to give yourself. And yes, and at the end of each of these entretiens with the mother, she would say au revoir and take our hands in hers. And
You'd
that's
hold
how-
your hands and then look into your eyes. Just hold your hands and look into your eyes.
Actually, very soon she asked us whether we wanted to ask questions or whether we rather wish to have what she called a bath of silence. And usually we said we'd rather have a bath of silence. And so for about 15, sometimes 20 minutes, we would just stay in front of her and just in silence. I mean, silence in between quotes, because once she said, after the meditation, maybe you were there, I don't know, she said, a very noisy silence. Would you, maybe Jean-Claude was there and Dorothy, you remember that? We were quite a number of us there, because after that she said, other people can come if they are sincere, if they really want to come, if it helps, if they find it's good for them, let them come. So sometimes we were about 15 or 20 in this little room full of green and gold. I mean, it was for me it's this green carpet and the golden light coming from the windows and mother there in the gold and the green. It was really unforgettable experience, and all of us there trying very hard to meditate, to concentrate in front of her. We have to be good, we have to be, and then after that, with a smile, because the humor was something that with mother that was, I mean, for me was so surprising, because you go and see the mother and you expect something. I mean, you are a bit scared, and I mean, the beginning you think, oh, and so simple, so mother-like and so humorous. And she said, oh, very noisy silence. Un silence bruyant.
You remember the story of the cows?
The cows, yes,
I laughed very much, and she said, I give blessings for him, but not for the cows.
So were you there also, Dorothy, at this time of the noisy silence?
I was there in the noisy silence, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I think I contributed my part of the noise.
Describe to us the noisy silence.
Can't say very much. First, it was surprising to me because she very much insisted we should be very comfortable. She several times she repeated it. You must be comfortable. You must be very comfortable. And we tried moving around, and anyway, and after that there was a noisy silence.
Did you ever feel comfortable when you were there?
Can't say comfortable. No, it's just as Christophe says it's completely, things completely disappeared. I was exactly like Christophe after my first meeting with Mother on my birthday. I had to be guided out. I didn't know the way at all where I was, and then it took quite some time to come back. I stayed in that meditation room afterwards downstairs, and it took me a long time to come back.
And Jean-Claude, when you were in these noisy silences, what was your experience?
My experience, I remember I was a little bit afraid somewhere because I was part of this very noisy silence. I knew very well, and I remember somewhere inside something was saying, but shut up, you should concentrate, you should be open yourself. You come here to be open, bon sang. And I was hiding more onto the noisy silence. I remember very well that. I was very uncomfortable because Mother was for me so immense compared to me. I felt so little, so unprepared for what she was asking us to do. I remember that. Yeah.
Did she give you any personal direction? Did you go to her and ask questions that you had regarding your spiritual practice, or what you were supposed to be doing, or what your role was in Auroville? Did she guide you?
She was guiding us, yes, obviously, but I don't remember she gave conseil. She gave advice. I don't remember she gave any advice how we have to do for gaining consciousness. You know, I don't remember. She smiled always. It was very simple for her. You have to work. You have to try to be as conscious as possible on the work you are doing. Only through the work. Yeah, that was the advice she gave. Other advice I don't remember.
One advice, if I may say, I remember very well is that one thing she could immediately feel if you had some ideas in your head, and that she would say, "Oh, il y a des idées là dans la tête, c'est pas très bon. It's not very good. All those ideas, I can feel those ideas. It is not very good. Ideas are not very good." So that was one thing that we understood, that I mean, maybe to build, or we shouldn't have too many, I mean, ideas. It should come maybe in a different way. And that was, I mean, one very practical advice that she hinted at, she gave us. Yeah.
Francois, did she give you any practical advice?
No, I can't say that. No, it was quite late, 69, 70. We were privileged, but we didn't have the privilege like earlier, you know, like people in the ashram. We used to meet her every day and for a long time. Personally, at least, you know, I used to meet her for my birthday and maybe 2-3 times a year. Otherwise, but it was just holding hands and looking in her eyes, and maybe she'll say a few words, or she'll give you a mantra if you ask her. Letters, yes, I had some letters and I had some advice, but I can't really say that I, you know, talked to the mother long times and, you know, for a long time, and long conversations. And I didn't really participate in the aspiration talks. I already had gone, or I think I had already gone, left Auroville. Again, I know I want to come back to this. We were so privileged. I mean, we had the immense privilege of meeting the mother, and it is a discrepancy, you know, the gap between what we expected at that time and what is today. That's a bit frightening. Although the faith is there, and you know, we have the faith in the hour of God. We have the faith that all is going to be done. Auroville, I know it's going to be done, but still there is a gap. You know, there's an unexplained gap. There is a, you know, what should have been is not there. You know, whether we were not fit, whether it was because we were not fit instruments. This is my strongest feeling. Whether it's because something happened in between, or because she left us. For me, this is what's most sad. I mean, but and this is missing in Auroville today. I think that enthusiasm, that freshness, that belief that everything is possible. It'll come back. It certainly is a cycle. There are cycles of, you know, more individualistic inner research and less collective emphasis. But you know, talking about these times, you know, there's a kind of sadness that comes, whatever the reason.
When I came here a year ago, I came without any knowledge of Auroville, but yet I had a feeling that there was something going on here that was very unusual. I didn't understand it, but I felt there was on an intuitive level, I felt that there was a big change that was about to occur. And I couldn't describe it because I didn't have any information about it. But I still feel this 1 year afterwards, after my first arrival. And I'm wondering if you all have a similar feeling. Do you feel the same way? I feel, although there are many, many problems here now, that there is about to be a big change.
Well, I feel Auroville is very much alive. I mean, there's no question of Auroville not happening. You know. The fact that, you know, there's such a strong presence in the chamber, you know, in spite of the fighting around it, in spite, you know, of the mother not being here physically, you know, you can say in the Samadhi, you know, the mother and two widows, you know, they're there. They've lived there for 50 years, you know, that their bodies are there, you know. But then the matrimony, it's like a divine sanction, you know. That presence is there, you know, it came from nowhere, it is there. So that's a sign that Auroville is alive and it's going to happen. But still, you know, between what we hoped in when we all came here and what is there now, there's a gap. I mean, one can't deny it, you know. There is somewhere we have failed somewhere. So the sadness can come from there. That doesn't mean that Auroville is not going to happen. Auroville is going to happen. Don't know what my friend Christophe thinks.
No, I can't say much because I don't have the same feeling, because actually I'm not now at present living in Auroville, but each time I come here, well, I feel that something is so strong is happening here. And, but I'm not leading the everyday's life, so I can't say. It's very easy for me to say that everything is wonderful in Auroville, and for me I feel it is absolutely, it's there as it was in the beginning. I feel it very strongly, as you do maybe. It's maybe easier for me to feel that way, because I'm not involved in that. I don't know how you feel, Jean-Claude.
Oh yes, I feel something is there definitely, very, very, very strongly. Yeah, I feel it also, and I'm going very often to the matrimonial chamber, and it's there, the power is there, definitely. But physically, we are very, very, very far of what I imagine we should have been done. Something is missing, yeah, sure. We have a lot of work to do. But we did achieve something already. That's not bad. I was, when I came here at the beginning, I thought Auroville is possible to make it in 5 years, 10 years. Mother say in 20 years it will be finished. So I was expecting some kind of miracle somewhere, as everybody.
And after that sense, what François says, it is true somewhere that it's true that this process has been much slower than we expected, but it may be a deeper process. It may be something has to be much deeper and much slower, and not just build a city in a day with people who are not able to live the experience.
She said 20 years we'll have this, and 25 years we'll have this, and you know, and sometimes she would get discouraged. She would say, oh, but you know, with instrument like you, I don't know, it was an aspiration, it'll take 300 years. Remember that? Something like that.
No, but sometimes she was really, really upset. I mean, it is true.
But she said, no, she promised us things which haven't yet materialized. You know.
But at the same time, she said, I have all eternity. I mean, it's true that at this, well, things will be done, c'est ça.
But you must be optimistic. You're still here.
But if you go out of Auroville, I mean, as long as you're in India, you still feel protected. But when you go to the west and you see what's happening there, Auroville is still an island of hope in the world. I think the very fact that Auroville is still alive, you know, the only virtue of Auroville is that people are still there attempting. Nothing has been really. You can't say that Auroville has succeeded in creating anything except, you know, the green base of Auroville, the physical base of Auroville, all these trees and the greenery. But you can't show anything of Auroville that we've created. You know, we have not achieved anything in terms of power, in terms of money. We have not solved any of these major, you know, problems which have plagued the world for 10,000 years. But we're still there, and people are still coming. So that's the hope for the world, I think, because this place exists. Otherwise,
Otherwise?
Dorothy, do you have, what are your feelings on this subject?
Yeah, of course.
You know, within it takes 300 years. Remember that? Something like that.
No, but
once.
sometimes she was really, really upset. I mean, it is true.
But she said, no, she promised us things which
Mm.
haven't yet materialized. You know.
But at the same time, she said, I have all eternity. I mean, it's true that at this, well, things will be done, c'est ça.
But you must be optimistic. You're still here.
But if you go out of Auroville, I mean, as long as you're in India, you still feel protected. But when you go to the west and you see what's happening there, Auroville is still an island of hope in the world. I think the very fact that Auroville is still alive, you know, the only virtue of Auroville is that people are still there attempting. Nothing has been really. You can't say that Auroville has succeeded in creating anything except, you know, the green base of Auroville, the physical base of Auroville, all these trees and the greenery. But you can't show anything of Auroville that we've created. You know, we have not achieved anything in terms of power, in terms of money. We have not solved any of these major, you know, problems which have plagued the world for 10,000 years. But we're still there, and people are still coming. I mean, so that's the hope for the world, I think, because this place exists. Otherwise.
Dorothy, do you have, what are your feelings on this subject?
Yeah, of course, I also feel that something has to happen. I don't know if you feel that it's about to happen, it would be nice, but everybody feels, I think, that something has to happen and has to happen fast also. But that's exactly where the hope lies, I think, that we still feel it's possible that something happens, something changes. And that openness is still there. We are not yet rigid completely. We are not yet completely, organization is not stiff yet. We are still flexible, and that's I think the hope, and it's a very great hope and a very real hope. As long as it is open, it can change, and the fact that we do feel everybody that it has to change, it's a good sign.
When you first arrived here, Dorothy, or even when you were still in Paris preparing to come to Auroville, what were your expectations at that time?
Nothing much physically. I was in Munich, not in Paris.
I keep getting this mixed up. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It doesn't matter much. No, of course we had seen that famous photograph of the galaxy, and maybe we were expecting something like that, but it wasn't very strong expectation, because I don't remember being very much disturbed by the barren land afterwards. It was good. It was all right. It was empty. It was nice. Everything to be done still. I remember that everybody was quite lost in the beginning about work, and it was just so completely empty, and nothing was told us. We were completely left to ourselves, and everybody was a little bit people lying around. People didn't know what to do because it was so open. And then slowly some people started the gardening, and then that caught on, and we all did a little bit of gardening, and I did a lot of crazy things also, and then slowly everybody finding its place.
In those early days, do you think people did find their place? Or I ask the question because after a year of being here, I'm still looking for my place. And I'm wondering, what was it like for you in those early days? Did you find your place right away, or were you thrashing around like I seem to be doing now?
Yeah, of course I was thrashing around. Yeah, no. I remember my questions to mother usually were something about work. What shall I do? What shall I do? And she never really said very concretely. She said once, if there's something in aspiration which you would like to do, then you should do that. So I was looking for something which I would like to do. Then afterwards I was asked to work with Roger in the architect's office, and then I did that, and actually it was exactly the right work for me. It was very good.
At that time, what was going on in the villages in Kulapaliyam? What kind of contact did you have with the Tamil people then?
Well, it was not easy, but actually part of this, there were two Tamil children that, what was the name? Brigitte and what was the name? Jean-Christophe. They wanted to adopt two Tamil children. Was it one or two? I don't quite remember. And we wrote to mother saying that whether it could be possible, it could help. I mean, to close the gap between us and the village, if we could adopt this little boy. And she said, yes, provided the family agrees, and you should teach him something. Don't just ask him to work. And said, you should really teach him. And finally it was agreed, and he could live with us for some time. And it was quite a good thing, I must say. Maybe it was just the beginning of something. It was not easy in the sense that, of course, there were, I mean, in the village around, it was like people coming from another planet suddenly, and of course there were the first few months or years were difficult to establish something really, some trust between us.
This one adoption, did that continue with other children, or did that become an established pattern, or not?
Not really. He was actually the only one. And after that, when the Alain and Eliane started the first little school, then at that time there were a few, if I remember well, there were a few Tamil children there also, but very few in the beginning. Maybe Dorothy, you remember a little more than that.
Yeah, I remember me trying to do something also with the village girls. It didn't last long. Of course, there was response. They always were seeking the contact. I remember them, the village children, coming to Aspiration very often, looking into their hearts. It was much more open at that time than it is now. And slowly they got used to us. Personally, my work with them didn't last very long, because it wasn't really my thing, I think.
We had quite a very frequent contacts with the cows actually, and the goats. That was the first encounter with the villagers, and sometimes we had to fight against the goats with a few little trees here and there, and so of course they didn't understand our language. Sometimes we had to be a little firm.
One of them talked actually about this. Auroville was so bare, you could see the sea from anywhere, Matrimonial from here, everywhere. There were only palm trees, You could see the sea, and everything was red, Everything was red. It was like snow, In the morning sun, evening sun, how snow, is gleaming, It's scintillating, It was the same thing, It was so red, and there was nothing, no trees, You could see the sea everywhere, and there was no roads, of course, So one had to cross the village, Kulapaliyam, because there was no road from the beach. We built it later in Aspiration. So one had to come through Jipmer and then cross the village. And I remember it was a shock. It was like two different worlds, our world and the village. There was so much gap, which I feel is still here now. The only way we have bridged a little bit the gap is by taking some of the children in our school and bringing them back with our children. The first generation, the generation which was brought up with Alain Monnier and Eliane, they're the only ones who really are bridging the gap, Ratnam and Rama. But after that, Auroville didn't really try. I very strongly feel that there's a tremendous gap between Auroville and the village, and that it's going to be a major problem, because we have so many servants. And however good relationship we have with them, however well we pay them, they're still servants, and it's growing and growing, and we have more workers, and building more houses and more units, And there is no children, I mean, which are brought up. There should be, you know, lots of religion right from. They have to be brought up right from the kindergarten. Otherwise, they don't speak like us. You know, they cannot be on par with the other Western children. And it's not done in Auroville. This is, I mean, this is one of the very sad things in Auroville. You know. It's not done, and this gap is growing, and it's going to be a major problem. You know, the next generation is going to suffer from this. That karma that we have created, 25 years of ignorance and of, you know, unwillingness. No, because every time we tried too late. You know, so the teachers said and the parents said no, but it's bringing down the level of our kids. You know. And now what's happened? All the kids are going to, you know, Codécan school or the lycée français. You know, this is something very wrong. You know? And so that. Talking about Quilapayam, there's a, I mean, maybe now there are shops, you know, and there, but the gap between the village and Auroville is as great as when we, I mean, nearly as great. I mean, they understand us better now, of course, but there's not been much progress, certainly there. It's a major problem.
Actually, I remember Mother saying once that when somebody said the problem of aspiration was the proximity to the village, she said that is a major opportunity. Do you remember that?
Yes, they are the first inhabitants of Auroville, no?
Mm.
She said once?
That time, yeah, she said after that, yeah.
They are, yeah.
But as François said, we never really make it, worked on it, took it seriously.
And then Auroville is an island, you know. I mean, if you take the village is one thing, but India, no, nobody knows anything about India in Auroville. No, I mean, it's not people's fault because it's like an island. I mean, there's so many Westerners, and so there's a cut between India and Auroville. And personally, I've been fortunate because I've been going out in India quite often, you know, and it's changed my life, you know, because the Auroville needs tremendous influence from India. Auroville needs to be spiritualized. You know, there's, to my feeling, it sounds a bit, you know, it sounds a bit arrogant to say that, but Auroville needs to be spiritualized. It needs India's influence. You know, it needs more techniques. You know, what meditation or pranayama, whatever. You know, and there's also a gap between Auroville and India. Not necessarily as, you know, the Indians in Auroville, they're not the best representative of India also. You know? But a deeper India, you know, of which, of course, Quilapayam is part.
Why do you think that generally the youth are not attracted to the Auroville project? I mean, in India, why do you think they are not so? I mean, after all these years, that not so many young people even coming.
Well, the ashram boys never came here, and the ashram girls never came here, or very few came here, because they always, I think they always put off by the harshness of Westerners also, and they're also more used to, I think they're also scared because they don't have the, they don't have the
spirit of
pioneer,
also,
the spirit
no?
of pioneer.
Yeah,
they don't like
this is
also
the thing. Yeah.
being a pioneer, you know, and they have too secure a life, maybe, you know. I don't know what.
We have run out of tape.
Very good, we can go now.
It's too bad because we're getting into another subject.
But we should do more about
interest.
this caravan because there's so many more things to be said. Huh? It's interesting, this caravan, actually.
We have the different experience now.
Welcome to this